Hi everybody, congratulations on making it through the first week of class. I know it was a little intense. We covered a lot of content over not a lot of time. You had a lot of assignments to do that first week. So congratulate yourselves for getting through the toughest week of this course. I think the second week will be a little bit easier. We don't have quite as much content to cover and you don't have all those extra introduction assignments to complete. So take a day or two and relax, rejuvenate before you dive into this week's content. I'll be grading your first week's discussion post over the next couple of days. My goal is to have those all graded by the end of Tuesday, so that way you can review your feedback. I strongly encourage you to do so before you complete the week 2 discussion post. Again, I provide a really detailed grading rubric for those weekly discussion posts. You can see exactly where you lost any points. Remember to cover those 5 C's in both your weekly discussion post EOP and your comments. That's what I'm looking for each and every week. And again, those discussion posts are a major portion of your grade. So take them seriously, review the feedback that I provided on this first week before you start the second week, just to make sure you're not missing any easy points over a technicality. So the first week of this course, we really focused on establishing a foundation of understanding what the science of sociology is and applying that to social problems. You also had a module covering topics of privilege and oppression, and I hope that you were able to thoughtfully engage with that content. I know it can be uncomfortable to question how we have privilege ourselves. We oftentimes don't like to admit the privileges that we have because we don't like to think that we're contributing to social problems. But again, like I said in the first week, and I'll keep reiterating throughout this course, it's really important to understand how we contribute to social problems by reflecting on our own privilege and how we may contribute to systems of oppression. So it can be a little uncomfortable, but in order to develop that sociological imagination, you really need to lean into those feelings of discomfort and ask yourself a sociologist's favorite question: why? Whenever you feel uncomfortable reading through an article or watching a video on this course, ask yourself, why do I feel uncomfortable? And oftentimes we can connect it to a larger social structure that has influenced our individual sense of self in society. So whether it was the family you were raised in, the education you received, perhaps your gender, your race, your social class standing, all of those different structures affect how we as individuals navigate the worlds that we live in. So throughout this course, we're going to continue developing those sociological imaginations and use that as a powerful tool to help us understand the science of sociology and explaining and predicting patterns of social problems. So this week, we're going to start looking more specifically at 2 of the foundational social structures that contribute to a lot of social inequality in the United States and globally today. And those are the social structures of social class and education. So if I open up the week 2 content folder here, you will see the first thing, as always, your week 2 to-do list. Pretty straightforward this week. We only have 2 modules. One of them is about poverty, which explains social problems pertaining to socioeconomic status and social class. As you can probably imagine, an individual's access to wealth, to income, to property, etc., all play very significant roles in predicting whether or not that person is going to experience any type of social inequality in their life. The second module has to do with education. In sociology, we are well aware that education is one of the most significant predictors as to whether or not an individual is going to experience social inequality, because education is directly correlated to income. So after you read through and view the content for modules 2.1 and 2.2, again, I strongly encourage you to take notes while you're working through this content, write down any questions you may have, and that way you can revisit this content as you're preparing for your first exam, which is actually due at the end of this week. Also this week, you still have a weekly discussion post to complete, and again, your EOP for that discussion is always going to be due Thursday by 11:59 p.m., and your comments for that weekly discussion also due Saturday by 11:59 p.m. Again, like I mentioned, you have your first exam at the end of this week. I know it's quick, we're only 2 weeks into the course, but that's almost the midterm point of this 5-week summer course. So we're going to review and assess your comprehension of the content from the first 2 weeks of class. So to help you prepare for that first exam, I have provided a study guide here, and I'll open it up just so you can get a quick look at what it is that I'm asking you to complete here. This is optional, of course. You don't need to fill out the study guide if you don't want to, but basically basically what I did for this is just highlight the main terms, concepts, theories, etc. that we've covered in the first 2 weeks of the course that I think you should have a solid understanding of to perform well on the exam. So what I would recommend to help you prepare for this exam is to either print off this Word document or just open it up on your computer, and underneath each of these terms write out as much information as you can from your memory at first about what you remembered from these terms after reviewing the weekly content. And then I would go back into the weekly content and find examples of all these concepts and terms. Write down definitions from either the readings or from the videos, etc. And just write as much information as you can. Again, when we're talking about learning and actually retaining information, there's a lot of science that says the best way to retain information is to write it out, specifically by hand. But if you want to type, that's fine too. So I would fill out this study guide, highlight any of these terms or concepts that are really confusing to you, that don't make sense. I will be offering an exam review session later this week. I'll send out an email with a date and time. So it'll be just a WebEx opportunity, again, completely optional, but I want to provide an opportunity for any of you that have questions about the content. If you want to discuss something in person rather than via email, I'll be holding a WebEx exam review session later this week prior to the exam. So this resource is available to you to fill out. The exam needs to be completed by Sunday, June 13th by 11:59 p.m. And all of the information for exam 1 can be found in our course content folder. You'll see a separate folder here for exams. One second, my computer is loading here. And all of the instructions and guidelines for that first exam are provided right here in this content folder. You get, you can't see it now because I haven't released the exam, but the instructions are very clear. You get 2 attempts on the exam. It's 50 questions, multiple choice, true and false. Since you get 2 attempts at the exam, I only grade your highest attempt. So if you take it the first time and you're satisfied with your grade, you don't need to take it again. But if you take it and you see, I think I could do better, you can retake the exam, and only your highest attempt will count towards your final grade. 50 questions, multiple choice, true and false. You have 75 minutes to complete it, so it is timed. Any questions that you do not answer by the 75-minute mark will be counted as incorrect. So this exam does take some preparation. Yes, you can obviously use your notes, you can refer back to the readings and the course material, but with 75 minutes, you're not going to have enough time to look up answers to every single question. So that's why I provide the study guide ahead of time. I strongly encourage you to start preparing, studying, reviewing for the exam sooner rather than later, just to make sure you could complete that successfully. So I'm not going to go through all of the pieces of weekly content in the week 2 content folder. I will just provide a sensitive content warning that some of this content, especially in the poverty folder, can be a little emotional if you grew up in an environment or a household where you've ever had to experience poverty or living in a lower socioeconomic status household. So just proceed with caution. If you need to take a break, step away from your computer, practice self-care when you're working through this content, because it can be a little emotionally draining when you're working through some of these pieces. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions or comments, always feel free to reach out via email. I hope you enjoy working through the second week of content. Take care of everybody.